I should have seen it coming. Looking back now, the signs were all there, scattered like breadcrumbs I was too blind to notice. But when you love someone, really love them, you don't look for reasons to doubt. You trust. You believe. You give them the benefit of every single doubt until there's nothing left to give. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and this is the story of how my perfect life turned into a nightmare I never saw coming. It started on a Thursday morning in late September. I remember the date exactly because it was our anniversary. 12 years. 12 years of marriage to Michael, the man I'd loved since college. We'd built what I thought was a beautiful life together. A house in the suburbs with white shutters and a garden I tended every weekend. 2 amazing kids, Emma, who was 9, and little Jake, who just turned 6. Michael had a great job as a senior architect at one of the biggest firms in the city. I worked part-time as a freelance graphic designer, which gave me flexibility to be there for the kids. Everything felt stable, secure, happy. That morning, I woke up early to make Michael's favorite breakfast, blueberry pancakes with real maple syrup, crispy bacon, fresh squeezed orange juice. I wanted to surprise him before he left for work. The kitchen smelled incredible as I flipped the golden pancakes onto a plate. Sunlight streamed through the windows, catching the dust motes in the air and making everything look soft and warm. I heard Michael's footsteps on the stairs and smiled. 12 years, and my heart still did that little flutter when he walked into a room. But when he appeared in the doorway, something was off. His tie was crooked, his eyes wouldn't meet mine. He looked tired in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. "Happy anniversary," I said, gesturing to the spread on the table. "I made your favorite." He stared at the pancakes like he'd never seen food before. Then he looked at me, and his expression made my stomach drop. "Sarah, we need to talk." Those 4 words. Nobody ever says those 4 words before good news. I set down the spatula slowly. My hands had started to shake without me realizing it. "Okay, what's wrong?" Michael pulled out a chair but didn't sit. He just gripped the back of it so hard his knuckles went white. "I've been trying to figure out how to say this for weeks. Months, actually. There's no good way, so I'm just going to say it." The room felt like it was tilting. Say what? "I want a divorce." The words hit me like a physical blow. For a second, I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The pancakes on the stove started to burn, smoke rising in thin curls, but I couldn't move to turn off the burner. "What? Michael, what are you talking about? It's our anniversary. I made breakfast. The kids are still sleeping upstairs. This doesn't make any sense." He finally looked at me, and his eyes were cold, distant, like he was looking at a stranger instead of his wife of 12 years. "It makes perfect sense. I've been unhappy for a long time, Sarah. I just couldn't admit it to myself. But I can't keep pretending anymore." "Unhappy?" My voice came out as a whisper. "You're unhappy? Since when? Why didn't you tell me? We could have talked about this. We could have gone to counseling. We could have worked on it together." "I don't want to work on it," he said flatly. "I want out. I've already spoken to a lawyer. The papers are being drawn up. I'll be moving out this weekend." My legs felt weak. I grabbed the counter to steady myself. "Moving out? Michael, slow down, please. This is crazy. We have a good marriage. We have children. You can't just walk out on 12 years because you're going through some kind of phase." "It's not a phase," he snapped, "and our marriage isn't as good as you think it is. Maybe it's good for you, but it hasn't been good for me in years." That hurt worse than anything. Years? You've been miserable for years and never said a word? What was I supposed to say? He threw his hands up in frustration. "You're so wrapped up in your perfect little world with your garden and your freelance work and your PTA meetings. You never noticed that I was drowning. You never asked if I was happy." I felt tears burning in my eyes. "That's not fair. I always ask how you are. I always try to support you. You ask how my day was." "That's not the same thing." Michael's voice got louder. "You don't actually see me, Sarah. You see this version of me that you want me to be. The devoted husband, the good father, the guy who comes home every night and plays his role in your perfect family fantasy. But that's not who I am anymore." "Then who are you?" I asked desperately. "Tell me. Help me understand. I'm someone who deserves to be happy, he said, and I can't be happy here. The smoke alarm started beeping from the burning pancakes. Michael walked over and yanked the pan off the stove, tossing it into the sink where it hissed against the wet metal. Then he turned back to me. I'm sorry, Sarah, I really am, but this is happening. The sooner you accept it, the easier this will be for everyone. What about Emma and Jake? My voice cracked. What am I supposed to tell our children? Tell them whatever you want. I'll talk to them this weekend before I move out. Michael grabbed his briefcase from by the door. I have to get to work. We can discuss the details later. Michael, wait, please. But he didn't wait. He walked out the door, got in his car, and drove away while I stood in our kitchen surrounded by the ruins of our anniversary breakfast. I sank down onto the floor and started to cry. Big, ugly sobs that shook my whole body. The smoke alarm kept beeping overhead, but I didn't have the energy to get up and turn it off. That's how Emma found me 20 minutes later. She came downstairs in her pajamas, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Mommy, why are you crying? Why does it smell like burning? I quickly wiped my face and stood up, trying to pull myself together. I'm okay, sweetie. I just burned breakfast. Go wake up your brother and get dressed for school. I'll make you both cereal. Emma looked at me with worried eyes that were far too knowing for a 9-year-old. Where's Daddy? He had to leave early for work. Now go on, baby. Get ready for school. She hesitated, clearly wanting to ask more questions, but finally turned and went back upstairs. I heard her small footsteps on the stairs, and it broke my heart all over again. How was I going to tell my children that their father was leaving? The rest of that day passed in a blur. I got the kids ready and drove them to school on autopilot. I smiled and waved to the other parents in the drop-off line, even though I felt like I was dying inside. I came home to the empty house and just sat on the couch staring at nothing. I tried calling Michael a dozen times. He didn't answer. I sent text messages begging him to come home so we could talk. No response. By evening, I was frantic. I picked up the kids from school and made them dinner and helped with homework while my mind raced with questions. When Michael still wasn't home by 8 o'clock, I put the kids to bed and called his office. A woman answered. Mitchell Architecture, how may I help you? Hi, this is Sarah Mitchell. I'm trying to reach my husband, Michael. Oh, Mr. Mitchell left hours ago, around 5:30. Can I take a message? No message, thank you. I hung up and felt panic rising in my chest. If he left work at 5:30, where had he been for the past 3 hours? I called his cell again. This time he answered. What, Sarah? Where are you? The kids wanted to say goodnight. They were asking about you. I'm at a hotel. I told you this morning I need space. A hotel? Michael, you can't just abandon your family. Come home, please. There was a long pause. When he spoke again, his voice was tired. I'll come by this weekend to get my things and talk to the kids. Until then, I need you to give me space to think. Think about what? Whether you're really going to blow up our entire lives? I've already made my decision, Sarah. I'm sorry, but it's done. He hung up. I sat there holding the phone, feeling completely helpless. This couldn't be happening. Not to us. Not to our family. Over the next few days, I barely functioned. I went through the motions with the kids, but inside I was screaming. I called my best friend Rachel and broke down, telling her everything. He just announced it out of nowhere? Rachel sounded shocked. No warning? No fights? Nothing? Nothing, I sobbed. Everything was fine. Or I thought it was fine. Rachel, what am I supposed to do? You need a lawyer, she said firmly, like yesterday. If he's already talked to a lawyer, you need to protect yourself. I don't want to fight him. I want to save my marriage. Sarah, honey, I love you, but you need to face reality. He's already made up his mind. You need to make sure you and the kids are taken care of. I knew she was right, but it felt like giving up, like admitting defeat. On Saturday, Michael came to the house. I'd told the kids that Daddy needed to talk to them about something important. They sat on the couch looking worried while Michael pulled up a chair across from them. Emma, Jake, Your mom and I need to tell you something, Michael started. He couldn't even look at me when he said it. Sometimes grown-ups realize that they're better off not being married anymore. That's what's happening with us. Emma's face crumpled. You're getting divorced? We think it's the best thing for everyone, Michael said. I don't think it's best for me, Emma shouted, tears streaming down her face. I don't want you to leave. Jake didn't say anything. He just climbed into my lap and buried his face in my shoulder. I know this is hard, Michael said, but nothing changes between me and you guys. I'll still see you all the time. I'll still be your dad. But you won't live here anymore, Emma said accusingly. No, I won't live here, but we'll figure out a schedule where you can stay with me sometimes too. I don't want a schedule, Emma cried. I want everything to stay the same. Michael looked uncomfortable. I'm sorry, Emma, I really am, but sometimes things have to change. After he finished talking to the kids, Michael went upstairs to pack some clothes. I followed him to our bedroom and watched as he pulled suitcases from the closet. Is there someone else? I asked quietly. He froze for just a second. Then he resumed packing. No, this isn't about another woman. This is about me needing to figure out who I am outside of this marriage. I didn't believe him. That tiny hesitation told me everything. Michael, if you're having an affair, please just tell me. I deserve the truth. There's no affair, he said, but he still wouldn't look at me. I just need space, Sarah. Why can't you understand that? Because you're destroying our family. Because our children are downstairs crying. Because 12 years of marriage should count for something. He zipped up the suitcase and turned to face me. I'm sorry. I know this hurts, but staying together when I'm this unhappy would hurt everyone more in the long run. He walked past me and down the stairs. I heard him say goodbye to the kids, heard Emma begging him not to go, heard Jake crying. Then the front door closed and he was gone. I spent that night holding my children while they cried themselves to sleep. I felt like the world's biggest failure. I'd promised them a stable, happy family, and I couldn't even keep their father from walking out. The next week, I got the official papers. Petition for dissolution of marriage. The legal language made everything feel cold and final. Michael was asking for joint custody of the kids and a division of all our assets. I met with a lawyer named Patricia Chen. She was in her 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. Tell me everything, she said, pulling out a legal pad. I told her the whole story, the surprise announcement, Michael's claims that he'd been unhappy for years, the way he just walked out. Patricia listened carefully, taking notes. Then she asked the question I'd been dreading. Do you think there's another woman? I don't know, I admitted. He denied it, but something felt off. We need to find out, Patricia said bluntly. If he's been having an affair, it could affect the divorce settlement, especially regarding custody and asset division. Does he have a work computer? A second phone? Any unusual charges on credit cards? I don't know, I never looked. I trusted him. Okay, well, trust is over now. Patricia's voice was firm but not unkind. I need you to start paying attention. Check bank statements. Look at his credit card bills if you have access. See if there are any charges at hotels, restaurants, unusual expenses. That feels like spying. It's not spying. It's protecting yourself and your children. If Michael's been dishonest about an affair, he might be dishonest about finances too. She was right. I needed to stop being naive. That night, after the kids were in bed, I opened our laptop and logged into our bank accounts. Michael and I had always kept everything joint. We'd never had secrets about money. I started scrolling through the past few months of credit card statements. At first, everything looked normal. Groceries, gas, utility bills. Then I started noticing things. Charges at expensive restaurants in the city. Places Michael and I never went to together. Hotel charges. Not just one or two, but dozens over the past 6 months. My stomach turned as I kept scrolling. Jewelry purchases. Flowers from a high-end florist. Charges at a spa. He'd been spending our money on someone else. For months. I printed out the statements with shaking hands. Page after page of evidence that Michael had been lying to my face. The next morning, I called Patricia and told her what I'd found. Good work, she said. This is exactly what we need. Bring those statements to my office today." At her office, Patricia reviewed everything carefully. Then she looked up at me with a serious expression. "Sarah, your husband has spent over $30,000 in the past 6 months on what appears to be an affair. These hotel charges, the restaurants, the gifts, this is a clear pattern. $30,000. I felt sick. "That's our savings," I whispered. "That money was supposed to be for the kids' college funds, for emergencies." "I know, and we're going to make sure the court knows about this." Patricia started making notes. "I'm going to file a motion for full financial disclosure. He'll have to provide bank statements, credit card records, everything. And if he's been hiding money or spending marital assets on an extramarital affair, that's going to work in your favor." Over the next few weeks, the divorce proceedings became a nightmare. Michael's lawyer was aggressive, painting me as a homemaker who'd contributed nothing to the marriage, while Michael had been the breadwinner. I sat in depositions, answering invasive questions about my work history, my parenting, my relationship with Michael. Every answer I gave got twisted into something negative. My part-time freelance work was portrayed as a hobby rather than a real job. My devotion to the kids was framed as smothering and overprotective. My trust in Michael was painted as naivety and willful ignorance. Patricia fought back hard, but I could feel the battle draining me. Every day brought new stress, new accusations, new reasons to feel like I was losing control of my life. Then came the custody evaluation. A court-appointed psychologist named Dr. Raymond Vasquez would be interviewing both Michael and me, as well as the kids, to make a recommendation about custody arrangements. I met with Dr. Vasquez 3 times. He asked me hundreds of questions about my parenting style, my relationship with the kids, my daily routine with them. I answered everything honestly, trying to show him that I was a good mother who put my children first. But I had no idea what Michael was telling him. The kids had their sessions too. Emma came home from hers looking upset. "How did it go, sweetie?" I asked carefully. She shrugged. "He asked a lot of questions about you and Daddy, about who takes care of us more, about whether I feel safe." "What did you tell him?" "The truth, that you're always there for us, that you help with homework and make our lunches and come to all our school stuff, that Daddy used to travel a lot for work so we didn't see him as much." "That's good, baby. That's the truth." But Emma's face scrunched up. "Mommy, I don't want to choose between you and Daddy. The doctor kept asking who I wanted to live with, and I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings." My heart broke. "Oh, sweetie, this isn't your choice to make. This is between the adults. You don't have to choose." "But what if the judge makes me choose?" "That won't happen," I promised her, even though I wasn't sure. A few weeks later, Patricia called me with terrible news. "Sarah, Dr. Vasquez's report came in. You need to prepare yourself. It's not good." My whole body went cold. "What does it say?" "He's recommending joint custody, but with Michael as the primary custodial parent." No, that's not possible. I'm their primary caregiver. I've always been their primary caregiver." "I know," Patricia said gently, "but his report focuses heavily on financial stability. Michael has a high-paying job and can provide a more stable home environment. You're working part-time and your income is irregular. He's framing it as being in the children's best interest to live primarily with the more financially stable parent." "That's not fair. I work part-time so I can be there for the kids. Michael was always traveling, always working late. I'm the one who's been raising them." "I understand. And we're going to fight this. But Sarah, you need to know that custody battles often come down to which parent can provide more financial security. The courts care about stability." "I'm stable," I insisted. "The kids have everything they need." "But do you have enough income to maintain the house? To keep them in their current school district? To provide for them long-term?" I didn't have an answer. That night I couldn't sleep. The thought of losing primary custody of my children was unbearable. They were my whole world. Emma and Jake needed me. I started thinking about worst-case scenarios. What if Michael got the house? What if I could only see my kids every other weekend? What if he moved away and I barely saw them at all? The fear was suffocating. In early November, we had our first major court hearing. Both sides would present arguments about temporary custody and support while the divorce was finalized. I sat at a table with Patricia, my hands clenched in my lap, trying not to shake. Michael sat across the aisle with his lawyer, a sharp-looking woman named Victoria Ross. He was wearing his best suit, and he looked calm and confident. The judge, Honorable Robert Martinez, reviewed the preliminary documents before addressing both sides. I've read Dr. Vasquez's custody evaluation, as well as the financial disclosures from both parties. Mr. Mitchell, it appears you've spent a considerable amount of marital funds over the past 6 months. Would you like to explain these expenditures? Michael's lawyer stood up. Your Honor, my client acknowledges that he made some personal purchases during a difficult time in his marriage. However, these expenditures represent a small fraction of the overall marital assets and should not impact the custody determination. Judge Martinez looked skeptical. $30,000 is not a small fraction, Ms. Ross. With respect, Your Honor, my client earns a substantial salary. These purchases were made from his earnings. Earnings that went into joint accounts, Patricia interjected, standing up. Earnings that were marital property. And these purchases weren't for family needs. They were for hotels and expensive dinners and jewelry that Mrs. Mitchell never received. This money was spent on an extramarital affair. The judge looked at Michael. Is that true, Mr. Mitchell? Have you been involved in a relationship with another person during your marriage? Michael hesitated just long enough that everyone noticed. Your Honor, my personal relationships are not relevant to my ability to parent my children. That's not what I asked, Judge Martinez said sharply. Have you been having an affair? I've developed a friendship with someone, Michael admitted, but it began after my marriage was already over emotionally. A friendship that cost $30,000? The judge didn't look convinced. Victoria jumped in. Your Honor, whatever the nature of my client's personal relationships, the custody evaluation clearly shows that he can provide a more stable home environment. He has consistent income, health insurance for the children, and the ability to maintain their current standard of living. Mrs. Mitchell works part-time, she continued. Her income last year was less than $20,000. She cannot provide the same level of financial security. Judge Martinez turned to me. Mrs. Mitchell, what is your current employment situation? I stood up on shaky legs. Your Honor, I work as a freelance graphic designer. I've kept my hours limited so I could be available for my children. I'm the one who takes them to school every morning, picks them up every afternoon, helps with homework, coordinates their activities. I've been their primary caregiver since they were born. But can you support them financially? The judge asked directly. I can increase my work hours. I can find full-time employment if necessary, but my children need more than financial support. They need a parent who's actually present in their lives. Judge Martinez made some notes. The hearing continued for another hour. Patricia presented evidence of Michael's extensive travel schedule for work, showing that he'd been gone an average of 10 days per month over the past 3 years. She highlighted my involvement in every aspect of the children's lives, from parent-teacher conferences to doctor's appointments to extracurricular activities. But Victoria countered with Michael's income statements, his excellent health insurance, and his plans to reduce travel now that he'd be a single father. She made it sound like Michael was going to be Father of the Year, conveniently forgetting that he'd barely been present for the past decade. Finally, Judge Martinez made his ruling on temporary arrangements. Until the divorce is finalized, I'm ordering shared custody with a week-on, week-off schedule. Both parents will have equal time with the children. Mr. Mitchell will maintain the mortgage payments on the family home, so Mrs. Mitchell and the children can remain there during her custody weeks. Mrs. Mitchell, you need to start looking for stable, full-time employment. We'll revisit the permanent custody arrangement in 3 months. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. Week on, week off meant the kids would be shuttled back and forth like luggage. They'd never have stability. But Patricia squeezed my hand under the table. It could have been worse, she whispered. At least you kept the house for now. That night was my last night with the kids before they went to Michael's for a week. I held them extra tight while reading bedtime stories. Emma looked up at me with worried eyes. Mommy, I don't want to leave you for a whole week. I know, baby. I don't want you to go either. But we have to follow the judge's rules. What if we don't like it at Daddy's new apartment? Then you tell me, and we'll figure it out. But you have to give it a chance, okay? Daddy loves you very much. Do you still love Daddy? Emma asked quietly. The question caught me off guard. I thought about lying, about saying something diplomatic, but Emma deserved honesty. I love the man I thought your daddy was, I said carefully, but I'm very hurt by the choices he's made. Sometimes love isn't enough when people hurt each other this badly. Emma nodded slowly, processing this. The next morning, Michael picked up the kids. I'd packed their bags with a week's worth of clothes, their favorite stuffed animals, school books, everything they'd need. I kissed them goodbye and watched Michael load their suitcases into his car. Then they were gone, and the house felt impossibly empty. I spent that first week in a daze. The silence was deafening. I kept expecting to hear the kids' voices, their footsteps on the stairs, the sounds of their laughter. I threw myself into work, taking on every freelance project I could find. Patricia was right. I needed to show the court I could support myself and the kids financially. I also started applying for full-time positions. My degree was in graphic design, but I'd been out of the corporate world for so long that most companies weren't interested. I was overqualified for entry-level positions, but underqualified for senior roles because of my employment gap. Rejection after rejection piled up in my inbox. When the kids came back after their week with Michael, they seemed different, quieter, more withdrawn. "How is Daddy's apartment?" I asked, trying to sound cheerful. "It's okay," Emma said flatly. "He has a 2-bedroom, so we each get our own room." "That's nice. Did you guys do anything fun?" Emma and Jake exchanged a look that I couldn't read. "We met Daddy's friend," Jake said quietly. My stomach dropped. "What friend?" "Her name is Amanda," Emma said. "She was there a lot." I felt like I'd been slapped. Michael had introduced our children to his mistress? I kept my voice calm even though I wanted to scream. "What was Amanda like?" "She's okay, I guess," Emma said with a shrug. "She tried really hard to be nice to us. She made cookies and stuff. But it was weird." "Did Daddy say who Amanda is? Like how he knows her?" "He said she's a friend from work," Jake offered, "but she was there all the time, even at breakfast." They'd spent the night together while my children were there. Michael had brought his affair partner around Emma and Jake without even warning me first. I called Patricia immediately after putting the kids to bed. "He introduced them to his girlfriend," I said, my voice shaking with rage. "He had her sleeping over while the kids were there. How is this okay?" "It's not okay," Patricia said, "and we're going to bring this up at the next hearing." Having a romantic partner around the children this early in the separation shows poor judgment. But will it matter? Will the judge even care? It should matter. The court generally frowns on introducing new partners before the divorce is finalized, especially without discussing it with the other parent first. Over the next few weeks, the custody arrangement became a nightmare. Every transition was tense. The kids started having trouble in school. Emma's grades dropped. Jake started having nightmares. I took them both to a therapist, Dr. Lisa Chen, who specialized in children of divorce. After several sessions with the kids, Dr. Chen called me in for a parent meeting. "Mrs. Mitchell, I'm concerned," she said gently. "Both children are showing signs of significant stress. Emma is internalizing her emotions, which is leading to anxiety and academic struggles. Jake is having separation anxiety and sleep disturbances. What can I do to help them?" Honestly, they need stability. This week-on, week-off schedule is extremely disruptive for children their ages. They're living out of suitcases, never feeling fully settled in either home. Add in the introduction of a new parental figure, and it's overwhelming for them. "Can you write a report for the court, explaining that this arrangement isn't working?" Dr. Chen hesitated. "I can provide a letter outlining my concerns and recommendations, but you should know that unless there's evidence of abuse or neglect, courts are generally reluctant to change custody arrangements once they're established." "There has to be something I can do. I can't just watch my children suffer." "Keep documenting everything. Keep bringing them to therapy. And keep being the stable, consistent parent you've always been. That's what they need most right now." I followed her advice. I kept detailed notes of every transition, every phone call with Michael, Every time the kids seemed upset after visiting him. But things kept getting worse. In December, Michael informed me that he was taking the kids to meet Amanda's family over Christmas break. I refused. Absolutely not. You're not taking my children across the country to play happy family with your mistress. She's not my mistress, Michael said coldly. We didn't start our relationship until after I left, and according to the custody agreement, I have them for Christmas this year. I can take them wherever I want. He was right. The temporary agreement gave him Christmas week. I called Patricia in a panic. She filed an emergency motion to prevent the trip, but the judge denied it. Michael had custodial rights during his parenting time, and there was no legal reason to prevent him from traveling with the children. Emma called me crying on Christmas morning. "Mommy, I want to come home. I don't want to be here." "I know, baby. I'm so sorry, but you have to stay with Daddy this week. I'll see you in 4 days, okay?" "Amanda gave us presents," Emma said bitterly, "like she's trying to buy us or something. It's weird and I hate it." "Just get through this week, sweetheart. You can do this." But I could hear how much pain she was in, and I felt completely helpless. When the kids came home after New Year's, they both looked exhausted. Jake had dark circles under his eyes. Emma had a cold sore on her lip from stress. That night, while I was tucking Emma into bed, she said something that made my blood run cold. "Mommy, I heard Daddy and Amanda talking about something." "What did they say?" Emma's voice dropped to a whisper. "They were talking about moving. Amanda said her company offered her a job in California, and she's thinking about taking it. Daddy said maybe it would be a good fresh start for all of them." California? My heart started racing. Did they say when? "I don't know, but Amanda was looking at schools online for me and Jake. She was showing Daddy pictures of them." I managed to keep my voice calm. "Thank you for telling me, sweetie. Try to get some sleep, okay?" As soon as Emma's door was closed, I called Patricia and left an urgent voicemail. The next morning, she called me back. "If Michael is planning to relocate with the children, he needs court permission," Patricia said. "He can't just move them to another state without your consent or a judge's order." "But what if he tries? What if he just takes them? Then he'd be in violation of the custody order, and we'd file for emergency intervention." "But Sarah, we need to get ahead of this. I'm going to file a motion preventing relocation until the final custody determination is made." Over the next few weeks, the divorce proceedings intensified. Victoria filed a motion requesting that Michael be named the primary custodial parent with permission to relocate to California for work opportunities. My worst nightmare was coming true. The hearing for this motion was scheduled for late January. Patricia and I spent hours preparing. She lined up Dr. Chen to testify about the children's need for stability. She prepared arguments about my role as primary caregiver. She gathered evidence of Michael's frequent absences during the marriage. But I was terrified. What if it wasn't enough? What if the judge decided that Michael's higher income and new relationship meant he could provide a better home? The night before the hearing, I couldn't sleep. I paced around the empty house, imagining what life would be like if my children moved 3,000 miles away. I'd see them maybe a few weeks in the summer, some holidays. They'd grow up without me. They'd start calling California home, and I'd become the parent they visited occasionally. I couldn't let that happen. The hearing started at 9 in the morning. The courtroom was packed with lawyers and other families going through similar battles. When our case was called, I walked to the table on shaking legs. Judge Martinez looked tired. He'd probably been dealing with heartbreaking family cases all week. "I've reviewed the motion for relocation," he started. "Mr. Mitchell, you're requesting permission to move to California with the minor children. On what grounds?" Victoria stood up smoothly. "Your Honor, my client has been offered a significant career opportunity in Los Angeles. His partner, Amanda Walsh, has accepted a position with a major tech company there. They're planning to marry next year and establish a stable home environment for the children. This move would provide better schools, better opportunities, and a higher standard of living. The children have lived in this community their entire lives," Patricia countered. "Their school, their friends, their extended family are all here. Uprooting them would be traumatic and unnecessary. Mrs. Mitchell has been their primary caregiver since birth. Removing the children from her daily presence would be detrimental to their well-being. Judge Martinez looked at Michael. "Why can't Ms. Walsh take this job and you remain here with the children?" Michael stood up. "Your Honor, Amanda and I are building a life together. This opportunity is important for our future. And frankly, I believe a fresh start would be good for Emma and Jake. They're struggling with the divorce, and staying in this community where everyone knows about our family situation is making it harder. They're struggling because their father walked out and immediately introduced them to his girlfriend," Patricia said sharply. "They're struggling because they're being shuffled between homes every week. Moving them across the country will only make things worse." The judge called Dr. Chen to testify. She explained her concerns about the children's current stress levels and her professional opinion that relocating would be harmful. But Victoria cross-examined her aggressively. "Dr. Chen, isn't it true that children are resilient? That they adapt to new situations?" "Children can be resilient, yes," Dr. Chen said carefully. "But that doesn't mean we should unnecessarily disrupt their lives. Research shows that maintaining consistency and connection with both parents leads to better outcomes. But if one parent can provide a significantly better quality of life, wouldn't that outweigh the temporary stress of relocation?" "Quality of life isn't just about money," Dr. Chen said firmly. "It's about emotional security, stable relationships, and continuity of care. These children have a mother who has been their constant caregiver. Removing them from her would cause long-term harm." Then Michael took the stand. He painted a picture of himself as a devoted father who'd been working hard to provide for his family. He talked about the amazing opportunities in California, the excellent schools, the beautiful weather. He made it sound like taking the kids away from me was actually in their best interest. When it was Patricia's turn to cross-examine, she came out swinging. "Mr. Mitchell, you testified that you've been unhappy in your marriage for years. Is that correct?" "Yes." "During those years of unhappiness, how many hours per week would you say you spent with your children?" Michael shifted uncomfortably. "I'm not sure exactly." "Let me help you. According to your own work records, you traveled an average of 10 days per month. When you were home, you typically worked 10 to 12-hour days. So, on a typical week, how much time did you actually spend parenting?" "I spent quality time with them on weekends." "But Mrs. Mitchell was the one doing the day-to-day parenting, correct? The school pickups, the homework help, the doctor's appointments, the cooking, the bedtime routines?" "We both contributed to parenting." Patricia pulled out a calendar marked with colored highlighters. "This is a schedule of the past 2 years, showing every parent-teacher conference, every doctor's appointment, every school event. The green marks are events Mrs. Mitchell attended. The blue marks are events you attended. Would you like to count how many blue marks there are?" Michael's jaw tightened. "I was working to provide for my family, and now you want to take these children away from the parent who's actually been raising them so you can move across the country with your girlfriend. Does that seem like putting the children's needs first?" "Objection," Victoria called out. "Argumentative." "Sustained," Judge Martinez said, but he was looking at Michael with a skeptical expression. When the hearing ended, the judge said he needed time to review everything before making a decision. He'd issue a ruling within 2 weeks. Those 2 weeks were torture. I barely ate, barely slept. Every time the phone rang, my heart jumped into my throat thinking it might be Patricia with news. The kids could sense my stress. Emma started having stomach aches every morning before school. Jake became clingy, not wanting to let me out of his sight. Finally, on a Friday afternoon, Patricia called. "Sarah, the ruling came in." I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. "And?" "Judge Martinez denied the relocation request." I literally collapsed into a chair, relief washing over me like a wave. Oh, thank God. He said that while Mr. Mitchell's career opportunity is notable, the children's need for continuity and their relationship with you as primary caregiver takes precedence. Michael can pursue opportunities in California if he wants, but the children will remain here. What does this mean for custody? We still have the final custody hearing in March. But this is a good sign, Sarah. The judge is recognizing your importance in the children's lives. I hung up and immediately burst into tears. For the first time in months, they were tears of relief instead of despair. When I picked up the kids from school that day, I hugged them so tight they complained I was squishing them. Guess what? You guys get to stay here. You don't have to move to California. Emma's whole face lit up. Really? We can stay in our school? Really and truly. That night, we celebrated with pizza and ice cream. The kids seemed lighter, happier than they'd been in months. Even Jake smiled and laughed during dinner. But I knew this wasn't over. The final custody hearing was still coming, and Michael wasn't going to give up easily. Over the next month, things got even more hostile. Michael started documenting every tiny thing, claiming I was violating the custody agreement. If I was 5 minutes late for a pickup, he'd send a formal email to his lawyer. If the kids came back to him wearing different clothes than he'd sent them in, he complained I was being wasteful with money. When Emma came home with a low grade on a math test, he blamed my parenting and lack of educational support. It was exhausting trying to be perfect all the time, knowing that every mistake would be used against me. In late February, Victoria filed another motion, this time requesting a modification of the custody arrangement to give Michael more time since he'd decided not to relocate. Patricia and I reviewed the motion in her office. They're arguing that since Michael is staying local, he should have the children during the school week because he can afford a house in the best school district. You'd get them on weekends only. That's backwards, I said. I'm the one who helps with homework. I'm the one who knows their teachers. I'm the one who's been managing their education for years. I know, and we're going to fight this. But Sarah, I need to be honest with you. These battles are expensive. How much do you have left in your retainer? I looked down at my hands. I've almost run through it. I've been taking on extra work, but legal fees are so high. I know. I'm trying to keep costs down where I can, but if this goes to trial, it's going to cost several thousand more. I don't have several thousand more. The money Michael left me access to is almost gone. I'm barely covering the bills as it is. Patricia sighed. Let me see what I can do. Maybe we can negotiate something with Victoria outside of court. But negotiations went nowhere. Michael wanted primary custody and he wasn't backing down. As March approached, I felt like I was drowning. The legal bills were piling up, work was inconsistent, the stress was affecting my health. I'd lost 15 pounds and I couldn't sleep more than a few hours a night. One evening, I was going through the mail and found another letter from Patricia's law firm. I opened it expecting another invoice. Instead, it was a notice that she was withdrawing from my case due to non-payment of fees. My outstanding balance was over $12,000. I called her immediately, trying not to panic. Patricia, I just got your letter. Please don't leave me. I'll find the money somehow. I just need a little more time. Sarah, I've carried your balance for 2 months now. I have my own bills to pay. I'm sorry, but I can't continue representing you if you can't pay. The final hearing is in 3 weeks. I can't find a new lawyer that fast. You might qualify for legal aid. I can give you some referrals. Legal aid attorneys are overworked and underfunded. You know they can't go up against someone like Victoria Ross. I'm sorry, Patricia said, and she did sound genuinely sorry. I wish I could help, but I have to protect my own practice. After we hung up, I sat at the kitchen table and just stared at the wall. I'd run out of options. I had no lawyer, no money, and a final custody hearing in 3 weeks that would determine the rest of my children's lives. I was going to have to represent myself against one of the best divorce attorneys in the city. The next day, I went to the law library and checked out every book I could find on family law and custody cases. I spent every free moment reading, taking notes, trying to teach myself enough to at least put up a fight. But the more I read, the more hopeless it seemed. The legal system was complex and unforgiving. One procedural mistake could tank my entire case. I was terrified. The night before the final hearing, I lay in bed unable to sleep. Tomorrow would determine everything. Would I keep my children? Would they be forced to live primarily with Michael while I became a weekend parent? Would the judge see through Michael's lies and recognize me as the devoted mother I'd always been? I had no idea. All I knew was that I had to walk into that courtroom tomorrow and fight for my babies with everything I had. Even if I was completely alone, even if I had no idea what I was doing, even if the odds were stacked against me, I had to try. Because Emma and Jake deserved a mother who would never stop fighting for them, and I would never, ever stop. The morning of the final hearing, I woke up at 5 with my heart already racing. I'd barely slept, running through arguments in my head all night. I got up and made coffee with shaking hands, then spent an hour reviewing my notes one more time. Everything I'd learned from those law books, every precedent case, every argument I'd carefully prepared, was written on index cards that I'd organized and reorganized 100 times. It wasn't much compared to what Victoria would bring, but it was all I had. I put on my best suit, the navy blue one I'd worn to job interviews. I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. I'd aged 10 years in the past 6 months. There were lines around my eyes that hadn't been there before. My face looked drawn and tired, but my eyes were determined. I was fighting for my children today. Nothing else mattered. I dropped Emma and Jake at school early, before they could ask too many questions about where I was going. I'd told them I had an important meeting. They didn't need to know that their entire future was being decided today. The courthouse steps felt impossibly steep as I climbed them. Inside, the hallways echoed with voices and footsteps. Families everywhere, all fighting their own battles. I found the right courtroom and sat down on a bench outside to wait. My hands wouldn't stop trembling, so I clasped them together in my lap. Michael arrived 20 minutes later with Victoria. They walked past me without even acknowledging I was there. Michael looked calm and confident in an expensive suit. Victoria carried a briefcase that probably cost more than my car payment. They had everything: money, power, a skilled attorney. All I had was the truth and my love for my children. Please, God, let that be enough. At 9 o'clock, we were called into the courtroom. Judge Martinez was already at the bench, looking through a thick file that I knew contained every detail of our case. I sat at the table on the left side, alone. Michael and Victoria sat at the table on the right, whispering to each other and organizing their materials. The judge looked up and seemed surprised to see me without an attorney. "Mrs. Mitchell, where is Ms. Chen?" I stood up, my voice shaking slightly. "Your Honor, I'm representing myself today. Ms. Chen had to withdraw from the case." "I see." He didn't look pleased. "Mrs. Mitchell, you understand that this is a complex legal proceeding. Are you sure you don't want to request a continuance to secure new representation?" "I can't afford to wait, Your Honor, and I can't afford another attorney. I'm ready to proceed." Judge Martinez sighed. "Very well, but I'm going to ask both parties to be patient with Mrs. Mitchell as she navigates this process. Ms. Ross, I expect you to maintain appropriate decorum." "Of course, Your Honor," Victoria said smoothly. The hearing began. Victoria stood and delivered an opening statement that was polished and professional. She outlined Michael's case, his stable income, his plans to provide an excellent home for the children, his commitment to co-parenting despite my alleged difficulties. She made him sound like a saint and me like an obstacle to the children's well-being. When it was my turn, I stood up with my notes clutched in my hand. My voice came out stronger than I expected. "Your Honor, I've been Emma and Jake's primary caregiver since the day they were born. I've sacrificed my career to be present for them every single day. I know their teachers, their friends, their favorite foods, their fears and dreams. I'm not here because I want to win. I'm here because my children need their mother, and I need them. That's all this is about: love and family and doing what's right for two innocent children who didn't ask for any of this." It wasn't eloquent like Victoria's statement, but it was honest. Victoria called Michael as her first witness. He took the stand and was sworn in. She walked him through his testimony, his job, his income, his plans for the children. He talked about how he wanted to be more involved in their lives now, how he regretted working so much during the marriage, how he was ready to step up as a father. It all sounded so reasonable, so responsible. Then Victoria brought up my financial situation. "Mr. Mitchell, are you aware of Mrs. Mitchell's current income?" "Yes, she's working part-time as a freelancer. Her income last year was approximately $18,000. "And are you concerned about her ability to provide for the children's needs on that income?" "Very concerned. She's already struggling to keep up with basic expenses. I've had to buy clothes for the kids because what she provides isn't adequate. I've had to pay for school supplies and activities because she can't afford them." I wanted to jump up and scream that he was lying, but I forced myself to stay quiet. I'd get my chance. Victoria continued, "What kind of home environment can you provide?" "I've purchased a 4-bedroom house in the Westwood School District, which has some of the best schools in the state. Each child will have their own room. There's a backyard, a playroom, everything they need. Amanda and I are getting married in June, so they'll have a stable 2-parent household." My stomach turned at the mention of Amanda. The woman he'd cheated with was going to become my children's stepmother. When Victoria finished, Judge Martinez looked at me. "Mrs. Mitchell, do you have questions for this witness?" I stood up with my index cards. "Yes, Your Honor." I approached the witness stand, my heart pounding. "Mr. Mitchell, you testified that you want to be more involved in the children's lives. Is that correct?" "Yes." "During our marriage, how many parent-teacher conferences did you attend?" Michael shifted in his seat. "I'm not sure of the exact number." I pulled out the calendar Patricia had prepared. According to school records, there were 26 parent-teacher conferences over the past 5 years. You attended 3, is that correct? I was working. You also testified that you regret working so much, yet you just accepted a promotion that requires even more travel. Isn't that true? Victoria stood up. "Objection, Your Honor. The witness hasn't accepted any such promotion." I pulled out a document. "Your Honor, this is an email from Mr. Mitchell's employer dated 2 weeks ago, congratulating him on his new position as regional director, which requires oversight of offices in 4 states. Judge Martinez took the document and read it. "Mr. Mitchell, is this accurate?" Michael's face reddened. "Yes, but I haven't officially accepted yet." "But you're considering it. A position that would require significantly more travel than your current role." "I haven't decided." I looked down at my notes. "Mr. Mitchell, you testified that you bought clothes for the children because what I provided wasn't adequate. Can you give specific examples?" He hesitated. "Their clothes were worn out, too small. Emma is 9 years old and growing quickly. Children outgrow clothes." "Did you ever communicate with me about these concerns before buying new clothes?" "No." "Did you ever offer to contribute to the cost of new clothes during our marriage?" "I gave you money every month for household expenses. Household expenses that you controlled. In fact, you were the only one with access to our savings account, weren't you?" Victoria objected. "Relevance, Your Honor?" "I'll allow it," Judge Martinez said. "Answer the question, Mr. Mitchell." "Yes, I managed our savings. And 2 months before you filed for divorce, you withdrew $40,000 from that account and put it into a separate account in only your name. Isn't that true?" Michael glanced at Victoria nervously. "I was protecting our assets." "Protecting them from your wife, the mother of your children? Or protecting them so you could spend them on your girlfriend?" "Objection!" Victoria stood up sharply. "Withdrawn," I said quickly. "No further questions." I walked back to my table feeling shaky but stronger. I'd landed some hits. Maybe not enough, but something. Victoria called Amanda Walsh as her next witness. I hadn't expected this. Amanda took the stand looking polished and professional. She was younger than me, maybe 30, with perfect hair and expensive clothes. Victoria asked her about her job, her relationship with Michael, her intentions with the children. "I love Emma and Jake," Amanda said with what seemed like genuine warmth. "I know I can never replace their mother, and I'm not trying to, but I want to be a positive presence in their lives. I want to support Michael in being the best father he can be." It sounded so noble, so caring. When it was my turn to question her, I stood up slowly. "Ms. Walsh, when did you and Michael begin your relationship?" She glanced at Michael before answering. "Last April." "Last April. And when did Michael move out of our family home?" "September." "So you were involved with my husband for 5 months while he was still living with me and our children, while he was still married?" "We were just friends at first. Friends who spent $30,000 on hotel rooms and expensive dinners?" Amanda's face flushed. "I don't know what you're talking about." I pulled out the credit card statements. "These are charges from April through September. Hotels where you and Michael stayed, restaurants where you had dinner, a necklace Michael bought you in June. Should I continue? Victoria objected, but Judge Martinez overruled her. He wanted to hear this. Amanda's voice was quieter now. Michael told me his marriage was over. He said you two were just waiting for the right time to separate. He was living in our home, sleeping in our bed, having dinner with our family every night. Does that sound like a marriage that was over? She didn't answer. Ms. Walsh, have you ever been married? No. Do you have children? No. So you have no experience with marriage or parenting, yet you're presenting yourself as qualified to help raise my children. I care about them. You've known them for less than a year. I've known them their entire lives. I carried them, I birthed them, I've been there for every milestone. And you think a few months of playing house makes you ready to be their stepmother? Objection, argumentative, Victoria called. Sustained, the judge said. Mrs. Mitchell, ask questions, don't make speeches. I took a breath. Ms. Walsh, the children told me you were looking at schools in California. Is that true? Michael and I discussed it, yes. So despite this court ruling that relocation isn't in the children's best interest, you're still trying to move them across the country. We were just exploring options. No further questions. Amanda stepped down looking flustered. I'd gotten under her skin, exposed some of the cracks in her perfect facade. Victoria called a few more witnesses, a colleague of Michael's who testified to his character, a real estate agent who described the beautiful home Michael had purchased. Then she rested her case. Judge Martinez looked at me. Mrs. Mitchell, do you have witnesses? Yes, Your Honor. I'd like to call Emma Mitchell to the stand. Victoria jumped up immediately. Your Honor, the child is only 9 years old. Calling her to testify is inappropriate and potentially traumatic. The child's preference is relevant in custody determinations, I said, trying to remember the legal language I'd read. She's old enough to express her wishes to the court. Judge Martinez considered this. I'll allow it, but I'll question the child myself rather than having the parties cross-examine her. Bailiff, please bring in Emma Mitchell. My heart clenched as they brought Emma into the courtroom. She looked so small and scared in her school uniform. Her eyes found mine immediately. The judge had her sit in the witness chair but didn't make her take an oath. Hello, Emma, Judge Martinez said gently. Do you know why you're here today? Emma nodded, her voice barely audible. Because of the custody stuff. That's right. I just want to ask you a few questions about your family. There are no wrong answers, okay? Just tell me the truth about how you feel. Okay. Emma, do you understand that your parents are getting divorced? Yes. And you know that means you'll be living with one parent most of the time and visiting the other parent? Yes. If you could choose, where would you want to live? Emma's eyes filled with tears. I don't want to choose. I love both my parents. I know you do, sweetheart, but if you had to pick one house to be your main home, which would it be? Emma looked at Michael, then at me, then down at her hands. With my mom. I felt tears spring to my eyes. Can you tell me why? The judge asked. Because Mom is always there. She knows everything about me and Jake. She helps with homework and comes to my soccer games and makes my favorite meals. She knows when I'm sad without me even saying anything. Daddy works a lot, and when we're at his house, Amanda is there, and it's just different. It doesn't feel like home. Do you like Amanda? She's nice, I guess, but she's not my mom, and it's weird that Daddy left us for her. Judge Martinez wrote some notes. Emma, has either parent ever said bad things about the other parent to you? Emma shook her head. Mom never says anything bad about Daddy. Even when I know she's sad or mad, she doesn't talk bad about him. She always says, Daddy loves us. What about your father? Does he say things about your mom? Emma hesitated. Sometimes Amanda does. She says Mom doesn't understand business stuff, or that Mom isn't practical. Daddy doesn't really say much. The judge asked a few more questions about school, activities, daily routines. Emma's answers made it clear that I was the center of her world, the parent she relied on for everything. When he finished, he thanked Emma and had the bailiff take her out. She looked back at me as she left, and I tried to give her an encouraging smile even though I was crying. The judge called for a brief recess. I sat at my table trying to compose myself while Victoria and Michael conferred in urgent whispers. When we reconvened, Judge Martinez asked if I wanted to testify on my own behalf. "Yes, Your Honor." I took the stand and was sworn in. Looking out at the courtroom from this angle was intimidating. I could see Michael's cold stare, Victoria's calculating expression, the court reporter typing every word. I represented myself, so technically I should have had someone else question me, but the judge allowed me to simply tell my side of the story. I talked about my marriage, how I'd put my career on hold to raise our children, how I'd managed our home, coordinated everything for Emma and Jake, been present for every moment of their lives. I admitted I didn't make much money, but explained that I'd kept my work limited specifically to prioritize the children. I talked about the pain of Michael leaving without warning, of him draining our bank accounts, of him introducing our children to his mistress within weeks of moving out. I wasn't perfect. My voice cracked. I made mistakes, but I've loved those children with everything I have since the moment I knew they existed. They are my whole world, and I'm begging this court not to take them away from me. Victoria cross-examined me aggressively. She hammered on my finances, my limited work history, my lack of a college fund for the kids, every vulnerability she could find. But I held my ground. I answered honestly. I didn't try to hide my struggles or pretend to be something I wasn't. When it was over, both sides gave closing arguments. Victoria painted a picture of Michael as the responsible parent who could provide everything the children needed. I gave one final plea. Your Honor, this isn't about money. It's about love and presence and consistency. My children need their mother. Not every other weekend, not for summer vacation, every day. Please don't separate us. Then it was done. Judge Martinez said he'd review everything and issue his decision within a week. We were dismissed. I walked out of that courtroom feeling completely drained. I had no idea if I'd done enough, if my amateur legal skills had been sufficient against a professional like Victoria. All I could do was wait. That week was the longest of my life. I went through the motions with the kids, trying to act normal, but inside I was terrified. Every time my phone rang, my heart stopped. Finally, on Friday afternoon, I got the call. Mrs. Mitchell, this is Judge Martinez's clerk. The decision in your case has been filed. You can pick up a copy at the courthouse or I can email it to you. Email it, please. I hung up and stared at my computer, waiting for the email to arrive. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the mouse. When it came through, I couldn't bring myself to open it for a full minute. Finally, I clicked. The document was 12 pages long, full of legal language and citations. I skipped ahead to the decision. After careful consideration of all evidence and testimony presented, this court finds the following. Mrs. Mitchell has been the primary caregiver for the minor children throughout their lives. She has demonstrated consistent involvement in all aspects of their care, education, and well-being. While Mr. Mitchell can provide greater financial resources, financial stability alone is not sufficient grounds to remove children from a loving and capable parent who has been their primary attachment figure. The court notes with concern Mr. Mitchell's pattern of dishonesty regarding his extramarital relationship and his unilateral withdrawal of marital funds without disclosure to his spouse. The court further notes that introducing a new romantic partner to the children within weeks of separation and prior to finalizing the divorce shows poor judgment regarding the children's emotional needs. Most significantly, the child Emma Mitchell clearly expressed her preference to remain in her mother's primary care, and this court finds her reasons to be thoughtful and credible. Therefore, it is the order of this court that Mrs. Sarah Mitchell shall have primary physical custody of the minor children Emma Mitchell and Jake Mitchell. I had to read it 3 times before it sank in. I won. I got my children. The decision granted me primary custody, with Michael having visitation every other weekend and 1 evening per week. He was ordered to pay child support and split medical expenses. The house would be sold and proceeds divided, but I was given first right to purchase it at market value if I could secure financing. Marital assets would be split 50-50, but Michael was penalized for his unauthorized withdrawals and ordered to reimburse me for half of what he'd spent on his affair. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't everything, but my children would live with me. They'd wake up in my home every morning. I'd be there for homework and dinner and bedtime. I collapsed onto the couch and sobbed with relief. When I picked up Emma and Jake from school that day, I told them the news. "You're going to keep living with me. This is your home. Daddy will visit, but you don't have to leave." Emma burst into tears and threw her arms around me. "Thank you, Mommy. Thank you, thank you, thank you." Jake just held on to my leg and wouldn't let go. That night, Michael called. His voice was tight with anger. "I hope you're happy. I'm happy that my children get to stay in their home with their mother." "Yes. This isn't over, Sarah. I'm appealing this decision." "You can try, but the judge made his ruling based on what's best for Emma and Jake, and that's me being their primary parent, like I've always been." "We'll see." He hung up. Over the following months, Michael did try to appeal, but his lawyer advised him it was unlikely to succeed. The judge's decision was thorough and well-reasoned. Eventually, Michael dropped the appeal. Life slowly found a new normal. The kids adjusted to the custody schedule. They saw Michael every other weekend, and while it wasn't ideal, it was manageable. I got a full-time job as a graphic designer at a small marketing firm. The hours were reasonable, and the pay was enough to support us. I qualified for a mortgage and bought our house from Michael, keeping the only home Emma and Jake had ever known. Michael married Amanda in a small ceremony that summer. The kids went and said it was fine but weird. Slowly, the wounds started to heal. Emma's grades came back up. Jake's nightmares stopped. They both continued therapy, working through their feelings about the divorce. I started therapy too, processing the trauma of everything that had happened. One evening, about a year after the final hearing, I was making dinner when Emma came into the kitchen. "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Of course, baby. Are you ever going to date again? Like, find someone new?" I hadn't really thought about it. "Maybe someday." "Why?" "Because you deserve to be happy too. You're always taking care of us, but you should have someone to take care of you." My eyes filled with tears. "I am happy, sweetheart. I have you and Jake. That's all I need right now. But someday, maybe, if the right person comes along." Emma smiled. "Good, because you're pretty great and someone should know that." I pulled her into a hug, my heart full. 2 years later, life was completely different. The kids were thriving. Emma was in middle school and Jake was doing well in elementary school. They had a good relationship with Michael, though he'd never be the parent he could have been. I'd been promoted at work and was doing well financially. We took a vacation to the beach that summer, just the three of us, and it was perfect. I even started dating someone, a kind man named David who worked in my building. Nothing serious yet, but it was nice to feel like myself again, like I was more than just a mom or an ex-wife, like I was Sarah, a person with her own life and future. One night, I was tucking Jake into bed when he said something that made my heart swell. "Mom, I'm glad we get to live with you." "Yeah? Why's that?" "Because you make everything feel safe. Even when things are hard, you make it okay." I kissed his forehead. "That's my job, buddy, and I'll always do it." As I turned out his light and headed downstairs, I thought about how far we'd come. From that terrible morning when Michael asked for a divorce to now, living in our home, building our life, being okay. It hadn't been easy. There were nights I'd cried myself to sleep, days I wasn't sure we'd make it through. But we had made it. We'd survived. And we'd done more than survive. We'd built something new, something good. I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on the couch, looking at the photos on the wall. Emma and Jake smiling, the three of us at the beach, our little family. Different than I'd planned, smaller than I'd imagined, but ours. And that was enough. My phone buzzed with a text from David asking if I wanted to grab coffee tomorrow. I smiled and texted back, yes. Tomorrow was a new day, a new chapter, and for the first time in years, I was excited to see what it would bring. The doorbell rang and I got up to answer it. Emma and Jake had ordered pizza for dinner, and I'd said yes because why not? We deserved a treat. As I paid the delivery driver and brought the pizza inside, I heard the kids laughing in the living room over something on TV. Normal sounds. Happy sounds. The sounds of a home filled with love. I'd fought for this. Fought through hell and back to keep my children, to keep our family together. And I'd won. Not because I was perfect, not because I had money or power or a fancy lawyer, but because I loved my children more than anything in this world. And sometimes, that's all you need. Love and determination and the refusal to give up. I walked into the living room with the pizza and Emma and Jake cheered. We ate together, talking about their day at school, making plans for the weekend, just being a family. My family. And as I looked at my two beautiful children, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. We were going to be okay. More than okay. We were going to be happy. And that was the greatest victory of all.